Welcome back to the library, dear wanderer. Today we'll head back to the hidden nest, back to King Shash's shelf, where we'll pick up the first book we see. This appears to be brought to the library by Dr. Solo, and it appears to be another excerpt from Monos's Chronicles of the Last Summer. Let's get right into it. Harmattan. Day 1 of the 1000th summer. A man sat in the desert. He was alone. Day 120 of the 1000th summer. A man sat in the desert. He was alone. Day 300 of the 1000th autumn. A man and a larger man sat in the desert. The larger man played a pan flute, rather poorly. "You can't brood forever, you know," the larger man said. The man continued sitting. Day 449 of the 1000th autumn. As it turned out, a man cannot brood forever. The two set out on the road due east. The court awaited. Elsewhere, in a different desert, a different man with boar tusks grabbed a young man by the scruff of his neck. "Your presence is needed, godling." Day 462 of the 1000th summer. The palace towers struck up from the horizon. "I don't see what I'm expected to do, Cloud Singer," the man said. "You have the knife," the large man replied. "You know what to do." Elsewhere, the man with boar's tusks and the younger man sprinted through an endless corridor of bookshelves, pursued by formless things that thought like wolves. Day 465 of the 1000th summer. That night, the man led a charge against the gates, accompanied by a man in a green mask and the very winds themselves. Their charge carried them through the palace, cutting down any who would seek to impede them. The man fought with a simple stone knife he had found in his hand many days ago. They then spilled into the courtroom. Summer sat on the throne.
"Harmattan, I've been looking for you,"
they said in a voice like a burning forest. "And here I am," the man replied. At that very moment, lightning struck the palace out of a clear blue sky, and a man with boar's tusks and a younger man found themselves standing in the courtroom. Summer was stunned for the first time in his life. "Hello, father," the younger man spat.
"Seko, how is this possible?"
Summer asked, rising from his seat. The younger man did not bother to answer, instead pulling out a simple stone knife. Summer reached for his own knife, but found it missing. The man turned to the younger man. "I assume you've been filled in." "Indeed, I have." "Right. Let's dance." The two strode towards Summer, blades in hand. For the first time in their life, Summer felt scared. Summer turned to his solstice, who had fled, and then to his daughter, also gone. They were alone.
"No, no, no, no!"
Summer screamed. Seko and Harmattan stood mere inches from Summer. They nodded at each other once, and then each drove their daggers into the body before them. Seko's pierced the heart, sending a spray of orange blood to the floor. Harmattan, though, delivered a powerful strike right between Summer's eyes. The blade had shorn the metal, stabbing through to the darkness behind. They pulled back. Summer, for a beat, stood silent. And then he laughed.
"Did you honestly think that—"
He was cut off as a third blade sunk into his throat. Spring lowered his arm and spat on the floor. Still, Summer persisted, grabbing both men by the throats, lifting them into the air. As their grip tightened, Harmattan began thinking that perhaps he should have stayed in the desert. As the world was fading around him, he heard a crash. A great black mass had broken through the ceiling and had driven yet another knife into Summer, severing their spine from behind.
Enough!
Winter said, pulling its knife from the wound, and then Summer screamed. A sunset poured from their chest and neck and back, while inky blackness oozed out of their punctured face. The dark fluid began streaming and then boiling, and it engulfed Summer's shining gold mask. In moments, the black fluid was melting through the mask, allowing more to pour out from behind. Screams of fury had turned into anguished cries, which then again turned to sputtering. In a few more moments, Summer was gone. Where they once stood, a black stain lingered on the floor, slowly evaporating away. Day 1 of the 1000th autumn. Spring spoke up. Here, lad. She'd want you to have it. He held out a simple wooden mask. Harmattan took it and walked towards the throne. He placed the mask on his face. It fit perfectly. Harmattan, king of the fall, sat on the throne. He was not alone. Excerpt from Monos's Chronicle of the Last Summer. Certainly a little bit more disjointed and hectic from last time, but not bad in its own right. The next book we have was brought to the library by R.J.B. It appears to be from a series that we've seen before. I remember something about a cow or a bird. My Mummy Brings the Groceries. In the everyday shopping life of an average Elrichian citizen, paper bags have become an expected necessity. Every marketplace has a bustling supply of them, with thickness and handles almost as varied as the goods they carried. But how did these brown bags come to so dominate our market life? The story of how these fibrous patrons of precious goods came to be is a longish and semi-interesting story. In the beginning, it all started in the sand-blown cities of North Empria, in the tomb of 1 million somewhat emperors. This tomb came about during the Great Western Panic, when each city within imperial territory had its own candidate for emperor. It was eventually sorted out in the Great Imperial Kniving Committee, and as a result, this significant tomb, Giga Tomb, was built and quickly forgotten, at least for a while. 105th years passed when they lay undisturbed and forgotten. Then, on the 106th year, two tomb raiders and carpetbaggers named Milfalsinicus and Mink rediscovered them. Amazed by the awesome might of history and the untold wonders which could be shared from its depths, they quickly sacked the tomb and took every bit of value they could scratch from the walls. Even the linen from the deceased was unraveled, sending countless would-be emperors tumbling to the ground. Now, as it turns out, not much of value had been buried in this tomb. All rotten old books describing the history of the land, of use only to the elitist captains of university. The lone exception to this rule, as it turned out, was the linen, which was found to have exuberantly grand carrying properties. With this discovery came the foundation of Milfalsenicus, Mink, and Mummy's Baggage Company. The product sold rather well. But, unbeknownst to the entrepreneurial inclined gentlemen, not all was well in their new industry. The mummies, whom had been brazenly robbed of loot and dignity, found issue with how their remains were treated. In the 11th conclave of the deceased Imperial Haunting Committee and Cream Parlor, It was decided that all the mortals using their linen would receive a pox, a hex, and an assortment of other shenanigans. The Milfalsanicus, Mink, and Mummies gang were forced to think on their toes. Every member of their organization complained of mild rash, moderately bad luck, and a tone of general discomfort in their everyday life. They had few routes of recourse, and it seemed to all that they would be doomed to a life of richness and glamour married by the inconvenience of many daily activities. Lady Luck was not totally lost, as the mummies soon began to run into troubles of their own, keeping track of the hundreds of cursed recipients and where to apply their eternal minor damnation quickly became a chore. Each bag had to be tracked to the emperor it originated from, who then had to submit their choice of fate to their otherworldly supervisor. Thus, Milfalsanicus, Mink, and mummies had their out. When the production of new paper bags exploded onto the marketplace, linens were seen as junk. They were soon repurposed into other goods, and the mummies fell way behind on their hex tracks. The people were freed from their certified inconvenience, and all the living linen liners rejoiced. So, friend, the next time you head to market, remember the pillage that led to the paper or cloth bags you now use. Avoiding the linen is best, lest the mummies clear up their red tape and come to annoy you. A story of mummies, their curses, but not quite as bad as curses from our world, at least not from what I've heard. But this is where we'll end it here for today, dear wanderers. Thank you very much for coming. It has been an honor reading for you. We had a bit of a shorter episode this time, but next time we'll have quite a bit longer one. We'll be covering a story that's quite beloved in recent years, something about a loaf of bread. But good luck out there, thank you for coming, and get yourself something to eat. Go on.